So my name is Amidi. I'm the publisher of Cartoon Brew, and I am honored to be moderating tonight's conversation about Big Mouth with Nick Kroll, who is the co-creator of the show and a voice actor and a producer on it. You may know him as the voice of Nick. We just saw right there, Maury, the hormone monster,
Sure.
Coach Steve,
Okay, I'm also on the thing.
one of my favorites, Lola.
Charming of you to have said.
And I did not know this. He does a total of 79 voices on the show. So once again, let's give it up for Nick Kroll, co-creator, writer, executive producer.
Thank you.
I have to read this since its premiere in 2017. Big Mouth has garnered 9 Emmy
What if it was what if it was him just now talking shit fully about the show in front of me? Sorry.
It's won 10
Yeah,
Oscars.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, it's gotten 9 Emmy nominations, and it has won 4 Emmy awards. Rolling Stone calls it one of the most reliable, inventive, and yes, disgusting laugh machines in all of television. The series has been renewed for an 8th and final season, making it one of Netflix's longest-running original scripted series ever produced, and I've been told it's actually the longest adult animated series that they've ever made on Netflix.
Yeah, fuck the kids.
You know, I mean, one of the things that stood out to me was when I read that, you've done 79 voices on the show.
I have to. We're currently saying that, and I'm like, is that right? I don't know, but let's go with it tonight. If we find out later, guys, that it wasn't 79, be cool about it, okay?
I'm curious. I mean, I want to go off of that topic. When did you first realize you had talent as a voice creator, like that you could come up with all these different voices?
I mean, I think the why the show works is because Andrew and I, it's based on Andrew Goldberg, the voice of Andrew John Mulaney, is the real person is Andrew Goldberg, who I've known since first grade, and like we're best friends, and so all the voices that I was doing when it was with him. So on some level, it's just an extension of what we've been doing our whole lives, and it was a show about where we really like found each other, and so it's in that way super gratifying because it's this person that I've known my whole life.
And so little Nick, he's based on your character, right? I mean, he's basically you. Would that be?
I'd say there's a number of there's a number of things about him that are very much me. Yeah, I have older siblings. I have overly loving parents, and I was a little guy, and so all that, and then specific stories are laced throughout the whole show.
And then was the voice that you came up with, Nick, was that kind of what your voice was when you were younger, or how did you?
I guess so. I think my voice was high, so it was like people would call my house and they're like, "Hello, ma'am, is Lynn Kroll home?" And I'd be like, "It's a boy," and it was. And then what I would do is I would just like take down the message and then just like leave it on the couch, and that was in the time when you really relied on kids to be answering services at the house. Anyway. Too bad we're done writing the show because I could put that piece of gold right in there.
I want to ask about your favorite voice of all the voices that you've done. Is there one that you particularly connect to or that you relate to a lot?
It's the funnest thing about the show is just that I get to do it. They're all voices that I have that are so fun to be with. It's so comfortable being with each of them. And not just doing one voice, it means you get to explore all these different characters, and every time you come back to them, you fall in love. Like there's been a lot. It's been really fun watching Lola as a character become a real kind of standout, like a fan favorite, and she starts the show as like I'd done that character Liz from Publicity. It was sort of in that space, but then. She's so sad up top, and she's really not very likable. But we knew what I knew what she could be, and now I really enjoy. I enjoy people enjoying her. It makes me happy.
Where does that spiciness come from for her? What were you channeling?
Oh, the Cool Ranch Doritos. Cool Ranch Doritos shampoo is what she used. It was actually I bought it at Sephora, and I'm using I'm using lashes now. It's a bummer we're done making the show because Lola should have the heaviest eyelashes. Do you know? I absolutely cannot keep my eyes open with this kind of added weight and pressure, but I've never felt better.
How involved were you, like when the designs in the design process of these characters? Like, what kind of back and forth did you guys have with the designers to come up with the looks of these characters?
We Andrew had worked at Family Guy for many, many years and had been a writer there and producer. And so he introduced us to one of the directors there. This was early on. So, like, originally the whole show, so they came to me, Mark, Jen, and Andrew were like, how about an animated show about you and Nick, you and Andrew going through puberty? And I was like, yeah, this makes perfect sense. It just immediately, it was one of those ideas. If people are interested in making stuff, it's like the stuff that just hits. You're like, yeah, that's right. And we didn't realize exactly what it was going to be yet, but we knew. And Andrew had an artist that he loved from Family Guy, and he drew the original designs. And we made like a little 2-minute pencil test of what it could be, and it was a real part of it. And we sold it. We didn't have a script. It was like pictures, all the pictures of Andrew and I growing up together, all that stuff, and the other people that the stories are based on. I don't think we had the picture of our friend who did fuck his pillow, so we didn't out him, but he definitely did. And he has probably more recently than he would like to admit. He innovated off of it yeah.
That's his thing now.
Well, yeah, he was like, do you know if you take like a Gatorade bottle and like warm up a sponge in the microwave, and then I was just like, I was like, okay, man. He has like 2 kids at this point. Yeah. Anyway, it got dark there. Sorry, didn't mean for it to get dark like that.
One of the things I love about the show is, like, unlike like a lot of long running shows, you guys actually age the characters, and I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about what was behind that decision to make sure that the characters are progressing in their ages, and also how does that affect you as a voice performer? Do you have to then age up your voice, or is that a consideration
Sure.
at all?
So I think early on in the show, there are really not many shows that I don't think have animated shows that have progressed the characters over time, physically and move them forward. But it seemed just at the beginning, like I don't know, sometime in season 1, I was like, well, they're going through puberty. Like this whole show is about change. It would be disservice to the theme and the ideas to not have them progress. And it just opened up more stories for you to be able to tell, like high school. Season 7 in high school starts there, and or not doesn't start there, and then and season 8 we continue that story. It's just so just as a writer, obviously as a performer, but as a writer, it's so much more gratifying to watch the evolution of these kids and acknowledge that it will end, in some way or other. But also, if someone wants a special down the line, I mean, we'll see what happens. But
So the
but
other
the
question was,
voices,
yeah, do
but
you,
the voices change. They just evolve. Like that's the fun thing about this. Being able to do this show has been like, here doing it, seeing it, watching it, understanding it, and then finding the essence. The where you just lean into, you find the song for each character, and that's that. But it doesn't really. I don't think the Nick in this final season, uh, like grows and. But the voice doesn't change that much because it's already this buttery, sandy, sensual one that you hear before you.
One thing I absolutely want to ask you about is in the 7th season, there are so many amazing performers in this show. You have Lupita Nyong'o, Billy
Course.
Porter, Lynn Manuel Miranda, Megan Thee Stallion. I'm curious how these appearances come about. Do you approach these people and just say,
We get right in touch with the Illuminati. We get right. We pop right in there, and it cuts a lot of the red tape out. It depends. Like Lupita Nyong'o was the first time she did the show was on Human Resources, the spinoff, and she played a Kenyan shame wizard, and we were like, oh, this is perfect. It was like a big corporate trip, and so we were like, oh, it'd be funny if the shame wizard gets conned by anyway. So we called her about it, and I was like, hey, here's this is. She's like, okay, and we had like numerous meetings about who this Kenyan shame wizard was, a few of them, and they were super interesting and really made me think about who this was. And then she did it. She was wonderful, and then we brought her back this season, and she's there are people like that and then Megan Thee Stallion just made it known to us that she liked the show, and we're like, oh, we'll write like someone she was like, we'll write some girl that Nick has a crush on. He's like, no, I will be a hormone monster. and she was amazing, and we wrote a song for her that she does. It's wild.
Some of these people are fans of the show, and they want to be like, they know who the characters are. They want
yeah
to be part of it.
yeah it was and Lynn similarly had always been excited to do something, and we were just like, do you want to write a song about a boy who is waiting for his pubes to grow in? And he immediately was like, esperando pelitos. And I was like, yep. He's like, okay, yeah, I got it. And he did it. He did it. And he played it for his wife, and his wife was like, that's the best thing you've ever done, and I'm not joking around. So good.
I think Lynn, I believe he's in the international episode, right?
Yes.
And that is probably my favorite episode of this season. I don't know if you've seen that episode where they go all over the world, experience puberty all over the world. I love that episode, partly because there's a Farsi bit in it, which I'm like, oh yeah, finally.
Yeah.
But I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about how that episode came to be, because I just love how.
Yeah, I agree.
So diverse.
I agree. I can say that because it was really a labor of love for the people I made the show with, like Mark Levin and Victor Kinaj, who's one of our writers and producers, and really spearheaded this idea of like, we can do it because you have all the voices dubbed into each language, and so there's 17 regions. Is that something like that? There's so many regions that all are the Portuguese Nick, and it was so funny to hear Coach Steve what every country's version of stupid is. And they're really funny. So we were like, we have all this voice talent all over the world, and we want to tell different stories from all around the world. It's the beauty of being on Netflix and being also having such literacy across different communities and people. And so we connected to different talent in a lot of those countries in India, and every region had a local writer mind behind it. And Lupita introduced us to a woman in Kenya, and we worked with and it was amazing collaboration to get it all together. And then the Farsi thing, like one of our writers and actors, and this Mitra Juhari is very funny, was very excited about being like, we're doing a story about a girl like using a bidet to fucking jerk off, and we're gonna do it in Iran, and it was, but in such a beautiful, honest way that I think was and funny and crazy. It's that show had a lot of different voices, and every year we try to do some sort of form breaker in some way or other. Like we did a Christmas episode with like 6 different styles of animation. From my favorite, I think, is the weird like Dutch, the Janssen twins, like weird like weird creepy like Scandi wood art shit where you're like, what are you doing? What are you guys doing up there? It's fucking cold and weird.
We have to talk a little bit about
Squid.
how long the show has run.
Mhm.
It's run for 7 seasons now, and you guys
Mhm.
have done an 8th as well.
Father Johann. And that, in that weird story, sorry, Father Johann, the Janssen twins, they would talk about Father Johann and must defeat the squids for Father Johann to come. I can't even remember exactly what it is, but it's something very weird. They are cannibals. They're constantly telling everyone they're cannibals, and nobody seems to listen.
I'm curious, what character stumped you the most in coming up with a voice, and if you could talk a little bit about your process.
Mm-hmm.
Do you just
It's
when you get a
mostly
script?
first instinct. It's mostly almost all the characters were like, this is Andrew Goldberg's like, Nick should have a hormone monster. And I was like, touch yourself, Andrew. It came out immediately. It was very clear and it was a hit and that was it. Not, I mean, like it was a hit, but like it made sense. But then, like Coach Steve, we're like, oh, we want to talk about Coach Steve's losing his virginity. He should have a hormone monster, and who should his hormone monster be? And it's Rick. And it was like, okay, what would he sound like? And it was sort of in there. That probably has evolved quite a bit, but I knew what it was very quickly, and then just I guess it really is just like if it's one of the other voices, the random voices, part of it is like also you do a lot of temp when you're doing the animation, and also you're just reading it in the room. When we wrote, we'd break it all together and then we would read through the whole thing together as a room. Each time we would finish a scene, we would reread that scene and decide collectively if we were ready to move on. So people also, you start to hear the same version of it, or you find it in there, and then so like the Statue of Liberty, I did temp, and they then went to try to find people to do it, and we didn't find it, and it ended up being it turned out the perfect Lady Liberty. It was an old French, like, it was a nightmare with your bullshit Mickey Mouse Coca-Cola, that vibe. And over it, like an Edith Piaf kind of was the direction. And we couldn't quite, they couldn't fucking beat what I was putting out there. Doing the voices all together, I drink a lot of throat coat. That's been the key to my success has been throat coat. Just jars of, when I'm recording, like just go through pictures of it.
What's the hardest character on your voice? On your
It's
vocal?
it's Nick. It's always been, in a way, it always has been Nick. That is the toughest one to get a beat on. But I think it's the going from Rick to Rick, because it is fun to do. Well, how Rick telling the moral. He's trying to get a point across. And he can't figure out what he had started by saying. And then it was just like off to the races, and nobody knew what was going to happen or how we will overcome. We shall overcome. I'm going to make a sheet sneeze. That was one of the episode where we realized that Steve had not properly gone through puberty, that he had a hormone monster, who then Nick finds out is his hormone monster. And so there was a scene that was like, I'm rolling up in the wall. Yeah, this is the guy that you're gonna be left with now. I don't want this guy. No, it's gonna be great for you, Nick. This broken down, one-eyed fucking wet Muppet. So doing that for long periods of time, that's why I drink the throat coat.
Do you go back and forth, or do you record one character first and then go back to the other? Or you do them all together?
Now, after this many seasons, I'm like, and I think it's actually better. I go through scene by scene and just do them all. And that is actually good on the voice because it gives it a break. It's like there are things where I've had to do like 2 hours of Maury, in a row, and that'll. It's been so hard, you guys. It's been so hard. But yeah, it's the perfect job. It's the perfect gig, and now it's over, and I'm really lost in the sauce, you guys.
Is there anything you can tell us about the 8th season? Are there any new characters that are going to be introduced?
Yeah,
Are there
there's
any
more. There's
hints that you can
new.
give?
There's new characters. I think I'm trying to remember. It's a very honestly slightly a bit of a haze in that we're doing at any given time multiple seasons. Have come out or are in progress or so. They go to high school, and it's crazy. It's just a great. I really think we nailed the landing. That we did a live table read of the final episode, and it was really a great experience, and everybody was there in the cast. We did this episode about going into the city and getting all tied up in it, and it was very fun. But I think that is also the beauty of I guess we started with, which was like the evolution of the show, that we could tell stories about kids starting at the end of 6th grade and get them into 8th grade and high school, and be able to continue to try to tell meaningful stories at even like micro amounts of time, but at that age are so important and feel so intense and high stakes. And so I have loved making the show. So it's a very gratifying thing to do.
There's a lot of empathy in the show. I love the show because there's a lot of things that make you uncomfortable and that are sometimes crude, but also it's backed by a lot of heart and a lot of empathy for the characters, and it's a very delightful show.
Thanks.
So,
I
so
appreciate
on that note, I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. Let's give a big round of applause for Nick Kroll. The 7th season of Big Mouth is currently airing on Netflix. The 8th season is coming out next year.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.